guys, my name is Nolo and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be asking, what is craft beer? So as most of you guys know, I'm a pretty big beer drinker. I don't know, should I be embarrassed by saying that? I don't think so. So I started getting into craft beer a few years ago and I could not stop. The more beer I drink, and sometimes I'll like be out with friends and I'll always ask for a craft, I will always ask, so what's on tap? A lot of people have asked me, no, what's the difference between craft beer and normal beer or commercial beer? Why do you like craft beer so much? Well, I'm about to tell you. Okay, so according to the Oxford Dictionary, this is like what Google says now. I'm just gonna read it. A craft beer is a beer made in a traditional or non-mechanized way by a small brewery. I mean, that is true in the traditional sense of what craft beer is, but not entirely, and this is why. As time has gone by and has craft beer become more popular and more people are just generally gravitating towards it, it's no longer made in small breweries anymore. But it can still be, but it's not only. First biggest thing that I think is the biggest difference from normal beer and craft beer is the ingredients. That is the biggest, if anybody ever asks you, that is the answer to that question. It's the ingredients. Craft beer always and should always have extremely high quality ingredients, whereas commercial beers usually use cheaper ingredients so that they can make a high volume of beer and obviously sell it for cheaper so that they can make beer. It's more about commercializing for them. It's more about monopoly and money, whereas craft beer is more about the actual beer in itself. I know a lot of craft breweries that don't make any money in the first 2 to 3 years. They want to make excellent beer. For them, it's about achieving excellence, whereas commercial beers is about how much can I sell and how much will people buy. Actual kinds of ingredients that they do use, right? So if you notice on craft beer bottles, instead of normal water, they'll say spring water as an example. Instead of corn sugar, they'll use cane sugar. It's always like those little itty bitties that make a huge difference in how the beer is made. And sugar is very important in beer because it helps with the fermentation of the beer. Another thing that's important is the malt in the beer. Craft beers are supposed to have at least 50% high quality malt, whereas commercial beers usually will exchange it for wheat or oats, instead of actually honing in on the malt. Yes, they might use malt, but not always high quality malt or not always 50%. So those are the big major ingredient differences. Then it's how it's made, right? There's this huge debate that craft beer should only be made in a small brewery, and that's not true. When I think about a very big brewery in South Africa, Devil's Peak, they are huge. They even make beers for other breweries. That's how big they are, and they are still a craft brewery because of the ingredients, not because of the size of their brewery. So that's one thing I would definitely say is not true when it comes to craft beer. But my favorite thing about craft beer is the art of it. That's the third and most final thing I would say makes a craft beer, is the art. And the art comes with the specific kinds of ingredients. Something that makes it a little bit special. Some people put cinnamon, some people will put oatmeal, some people will put pineapple. You can put anything in craft beer as long as it becomes fantastical. So for example, the kinds of craft beer that you have versus the kinds of commercial beers or normal beers is a huge difference. I've had a friend come up to me and say, you review beers, aren't you scared one day you run out of beers to review? And I was like, oh my gosh, that is literally impossible considering the array of beers. Let me give you an example. Normal beers or commercial beers usually consist of a lager, a light lager, a pilsner, and a stout. Usually, right? When you're like, oh, I'm having a beer, I'll have a lager. And then there's craft beers. The list is so long, I have to read. And this is not even everything, right? I'm reading like the normal craft beer list, which is still like really long because you can still add to that and make it your own. For example, there's American Pale Ales, blonde ales, Weizen, Hefeweizen stouts, Witbier, porters, IPAs or Indian Pale Ales, German Pilsners, Helles, farmhouse ales, saisons, red ales, dunkels, altbiers. I don't think I got all of them, but that's like majority of what craft breweries make. And the list is so long. For example, there's a Weizen here, or a Hefeweizen. You can have an amber Weizen, you can have a crystal Weiss. And that's just on Weisses. If you watch my first episode, I actually talk about the different kinds of Weisses that CBC has. And I think it's 5 or 6, which is just on the one style of beer. You can create like 5 other beers because it's craft and because you can hone in on the ingredients and make them super specific. And a stout, you can make an oatmeal stout. I've had one, it's so delicious. The oatmeal stouts are usually like in the winter when you want to be warm and fuzzy inside, and they're usually drank at like not room temperature, but a little bit higher than that. But they mustn't be cold because then you don't get to taste the beer. And that's also my favorite thing about craft beers. You must not drink them ice cold. Oh, well, depending on the specific beer. Some beers say add ice, some beers say, depending. But usually and generally, you have them at like fridge temperature, but not like those cold fridges, because you want to taste all the ingredients and all the hard work that's gone into making a craft beer, because it is a lot of work, and it really is like supposed to be like creme de la creme, every time you have a craft beer, you're supposed to have an experience of what the brewery is trying to tell you. There's red ale, there's pale ale. That's why I love craft beer so much, because first of all, I'm always trying out something new, I'm one of those girls that doesn't like to do the same thing over and over. I get bored very easily. So craft beer is such an exciting thing to have, because I never have to have the same beer twice. Also pumpkin beer, there's rice beer. There's so much beer that also is specific to certain countries. Guys, is so much. Yeah, guys, that's basically what craft beer is. And a lot of people always ask me, no, how did you get into beer? So I'll give you guys a little bit of a story time. So when I was in varsity, I went to an arts campus. And as you can imagine, arts campuses are really pretty like chilled and mellow, and people are super experimental. And in South Africa, it's very uncommon for women to drink beer. It's almost a little bit of a taboo, especially in the Black community. But on the arts campus, it was super normal, super chilled. All the girls were drinking beer. And because it was my first introduction to beer, I thought it was completely normal to drink beer as a Black woman in South Africa. I was wrong. The major 2 beers was Castle Lager and Carling Black Label, which is such a good beer. It's so sweet, artificial sugar, but it's a really good beer that is really great. It's won multiple awards. It's like one of the best beers we have in South Africa, even though it's technically not South African, it's Canadian, but that's a story for another day. That's when I started drinking beer, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, this is really great. Like, I actually enjoy drinking beer. Then as time went on, I started getting into craft beer. My first ever craft beer was Stef Weiss. Do you guys remember Stef Weiss though? It was my first ever introduction to craft beer, was a Stef Weiss. It's basically an amber Weiss, a style of a Weiss. And it was so good, so sweet. It came in a brown bottle, 500 ml, yellow labeling. Since then, like an amber Weiss, that style has always been like my go-to every time I'm like in the mood for a craft beer. That's basically how I got into it. And then as time went on, I was just like, hey, I don't think a lot of people have information about craft beer. Why don't I just talk about it and drink it and enjoy it as well? Then I got into reviewing beers, and now I just like review, I drink, I enjoy, and that's my thing now. I'm like a beer enthusiast. Yeah, that's the story, guys. That's how I got into beer, and I still till this day really enjoy it. Another question I get asked a lot is, what is your favorite beer? This is such a hard question to answer because it changes all the time. I'll start with my all-time favorite, because of how I started to drink beer, is an amber Weiss. My current favorite beer is a CBC amber Weiss. That is like my go-to. Then if it's like in winter, I love a Striped Horse milk stout. That is so good. Yo, you guys must try it. And their Pilsner is also amazing. And then I also love the Mad Giant Pale Ale. Yo, it's so good. Those are like my current 3 favorites. Also totally depends. Like sometimes I'll try something new. An IPA is really good most of the time. Devil's Peak has this amazing Juicy Lucy. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. That's also a really big fave. I also like Imperial IPAs. It's called Warlord. Darling Brew. Yo. That beer goes in, but it's strong, eh? I think it goes, 9% ABV. It's strong, but it's a really good beer. So that's when you want something, you don't want to waste time. And then also Guinness has Nigerian stout. Is I think 7.5%, 8% alcohol. ABV, it's quite strong as well. That's also a very big favorite. But I have so many, like, it depends on the mood, you know. Sometimes I'll walk into a brewery and I'll be like, oh, what's that? And I'll try a wit beer, or I'll try an IPA, or whatever. I just want to try everything, because people are constantly making beers, and it's amazing, and it's spectacular, and people must continue to do it. Everybody always asks me, will you ever start a brewery? And I'm like, maybe one day, I don't know. Let's start with shares. Maybe I'll get like somebody who wants to buy me some Heineken shares, AB InBev shares, you know. Let's start there. Let's start making money first, so that we can make the beer with money, you know, because starting a brewery is also not cheap, because it requires so much, especially if you want to stick to the high quality ingredients. It's not an easy feat, and one mistake and you have a bad batch. That's it. That's what craft beer is. That's how I got into craft beer, and now you guys know a few of my favorite styles. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to know anything else, please comment, guys. Comment, tell me what you want to see next. Tell me if you enjoyed this episode or not. Let me know what's up. Let me know what's on your mind. And if you enjoyed it a lot, and you want to see more of it, please do subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.